And hello all, feel free to send more questions our way. I'm going to share my screen now, and I think you all can see, you can see my screen now, is that correct?
Yep. All good.
And it animated, did it just animate?
Yep, it is animated.
Okay, excellent. We're live. Well, thank you all for joining us today. I'm Andrew, CEO and founder of Wheelhouse. We have about 20 slides to go through, but some of them will go very quickly. And we're going to talk about mixing short and mid-length rental strategies. And we'll get to that in just a second. For those who are new to Wheelhouse, our mission is to future-proof your revenue and profits. So this conversation will be very much about pricing strategies you can use to maximize revenue from your properties. For a little bit about our team, we build dynamic, some people call it dynamic pricing, but we're kind of a larger revenue management platform. That means we have a suite of tools for people to employ to earn more money. We do so often. Historically, we built a data-driven pricing engine. We're going to see today kind of a new version of Wheelhouse as well, but we publish all of our research. We just think it's, if we're telling you how to price a home or a property for any length of stay, we need to tell you exactly what we're doing. So we have, we publish our research. It's a fully auditable and transparent platform. It is the only one so far. We do think that all pricing platforms should be transparent, but that is yet to come. 4 products in one. So we have market reports, comp sets, booking analysis, and of course our pricing. And I do think the platform, we'll see some examples of this today, but from a design perspective, it's designed to be very easy for anyone with a single listing to north of 1,000+ listings, easy to set up, customize, and control. And we do have 24/7 live chat on our site as well. So if you ever have a question about pricing, our average response time is 70 seconds. Anyone who wants to go to usewheelhouse.com can try that out now. So as noted, we're going to focus this presentation on mid-length pricing. Wheelhouse's core competency is short-term pricing. We're going to talk a little bit about when we say mid-length, what's happening in this space, just to give you a general overview of the category. And Oksana quoted that Airbnb had seen a huge rise in reservations of 28+ days. But usually when people are saying mid-length or long-term, they're noting at least 30 days to something around 10 months, usually less than a year. Right? If you're north of a year, you're almost always going to have that lease agreement. But for mid-length, you can have, sometimes you can get away with kind of a different approach to pricing. So also when people say mid-length, we're talking about a very broad category. This has also historically been called corporate rentals. So if you look at any asset in America or any property in America, someone could, or worldwide actually, sorry, people can obviously come book your place for long stays if you allow it. But when people say mid-length, there are certain companies like Oasis, this team here, who really focuses on catering to those corporate travelers. They're kind of a modern team that only lets you stay for 30 days. There are companies like Avalon Bay, which is a big apartment company, a multifamily company in America that's starting to, they historically had long-term, and now they're coming into the to the mid-length space. And then when we look at markets, urban markets in particular, we'll now see that 40% of all listings are taking mid-length stays. That's pretty interesting, right? So a huge amount of inventory that's available on Airbnb and VRBO is actually already doing and already mixing short-term rental strategies with longer mid-length and longer strategies. And the reason for that, I actually think, Oksana, you nailed it, right? There's yes, there are ways to get great occupancy or kind of guaranteed revenue for long stretches of time. From a regulatory approach, it might be necessary to have 9 months of your property or 6 months of your property rented out as a mid-length as opposed to a short term. There might be properties that during shoulder season, slow season, you want to move over to mid-length rentals. So there's a lot of ways people are leveraging mid-length rentals to maybe not get quite as much revenue as they could in a high month on the short-term rental side, but to make sure during those quieter periods of the year, you're still selling your place and making money. So first of all, let's just name that even though Wheelhouse is a data-driven pricing company, that's been our core competency, truly data-driven mid-length pricing doesn't quite exist yet. And part of the reason for that was evidence on the prior slide, right? You saw there's so many people taking different models to mid-length pricing. And short-term rental pricing is incredibly difficult. But mid-length is kind of the second challenge in our organization. And I do think I do think in 2023, especially by the end of Q1, you will see the first data-driven mid-length pricing strategies emerge. And I'm confident in that because our team's been researching it for about a year, right? So if you want to follow up with me afterwards, I can send you some videos that are longer, deeper dives into the research of what we've seen around mid-length rentals and how they can be applied. Today, noting that the data-driven pricing strategies are still emerging, we're going to talk about a few things you can do now. So we're going to talk about something we call hybrid pricing at Wheelhouse, which is a new approach to pricing that we launched it about 2 months ago now, 8 weeks ago. We brought a new type of it's a mix of data-driven and rule-based pricing to market. That's part one. We're going to look at something actually that launched yesterday, advanced calendar views on Wheelhouse. So we're going to see ways to kind of see your pricing strategy on different lengths of time in a very easy fashion. And then we're going to look at a third thing called A/B comparisons, which kind of rolls up. It's a way for you to actually on Wheelhouse to maybe you want to consider some properties for mid-length and some for short-term stays, and you want to compare the revenue that comes off those properties. Well, we've made it very easy, and this actually launched on Monday to do that as well. So you're going to see a couple new fun things today, hopefully. So first of all, hybrid pricing, section 1. It's a new term, so I'll introduce the notion as historically, there have been 2 ways to dynamically price your home. And dynamic pricing is adjusting prices based on either expected or observed demand, right? So you have rule-based pricing, which is where people come in and you control the pricing, or you have data-driven pricing, which emerged about 8 years ago. And it was when you started to have companies like Wheelhouse say, hey, we can have a machine watch your property in your market and help update your prices in real time. And historically, you've had these 2 choices. So the pros to rule-based, you're always in control. It's easy to explain. Should you be doing property management for someone? It's predictable. You always know where your pricing is going to be. Data-driven, on the other hand, is always up to date. It's informed by your market. And it does help increase revenue for folks, especially capturing demand periods when demand is spiking. There have historically been trade-offs about these systems, right? You're probably using one of these today. Rule-based can be very manual, therefore difficult to scale. On the rule-based side, you kind of have to trust that you're monitoring your market and your portfolio. On the data-driven side, historically, before people started publishing research, there was black box. You might not have full control of your pricing, and you do need to monitor the model. So our goal, as of 8 weeks ago, we launched this product where you kind of take this old paradigm and it shifts, where you can have rule-based or data-driven pricing or anything in between. And that is what we call hybrid pricing. So you get full control of your pricing, but the upside of bringing data in if, when, where you want it, it's data really on your terms. So again, it's not a black box. We have a fully transparent model, and you get to bring that pricing model in wherever you want. It's very scalable and flexible. And it's a way, if you're doing, again, property management on behalf of others, to attract new owners. And the reason for that is you can offer one owner rule-based pricing. Maybe they're more conservative or more concerned about risk. Or you can offer data-driven pricing for people who might want to really stay ahead of the market. So it allows property managers to have a different type of conversation with owners. So in summary, we're going to get to hybrid in a quick demo of it, but there are 3 types of pricing available. Wheelhouse actually has rule-based, we have data-driven, and now we have hybrid as well. So we're going to watch a quick video. It's about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes of hybrid pricing in action, and you're going to see how you might be able to use it for a mid-length pricing strategy. So I wanted to illustrate how Wheelhouse's new hybrid pricing, and really our rule-based pricing, can be set up for someone who's looking to kind of mix longer or mid-length stays into their portfolio. So I'm going to switch over to my screen here. And in this case, I'm looking at a property, and I've turned it over to completely rule-based. And you can see that I have 0% of my data-driven pricing in the system right now. Move my cursor here. Now, what I'm going to do is, let's just say that I wanted to set up a monthly rule. I'm going to set my base price $150. Now, my basic math here is $150 per day times 30 nights. An average month is going to mean that my average price for 30 days or for a month is going to be $4,500. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the rule base or the far future, sorry, and you'll see we're still on rule based. We could always turn on data driven, but in this case, what I'm going to say is 90 days out, I want to increase my prices 10%. And 120 days out, I want to increase them 20%. And 150 days out, or 5 months, I want to increase them, let's just say 50%. So now what you'll see is you'll have a really interesting kind of basic approach to prioritizing longer stays. Now I'm going to go to my minimum stays, and I'm going to say I'm going to set a global minimum, of this case of 30 nights. And I'm also going to look at my time-based rules. And I'm going to say 90 days out, I'm going to drop my minimum stay to 14 nights. And 60 days out, I'm going to drop it to 7. And 30 days out, I'm going to drop it to 3. Oops. Here we go. So what we'll see is we now have a minimum stay strategy in place. We have a far future and base price strategy in place that gives us kind of a general, kind of a baseline for pricing. And now we're going to make our pricing a little hybrid. And we're going to do that by clicking over to demand sensitivity. And we're going to start to bring in, let's bring in 50% of Wheelhouse's demand signal. So now what you'll see is we've actually taken, we've gone into a rule-based setting. We've set our minimum stays to really prioritize medium, longer term stays. We've set a bunch of rules because it's harder to price right now in a data-driven fashion, 30-day stays. But we are leveraging Wheelhouse's demand sensitivity or our hybrid pricing to bring in really as much data as we want. And you can bring in 100%, you could actually bring in even 200%, but you don't need to. If you want to just start with a mid-length pricing strategy with a little bit of data, here's a very easy way to do it. And we call this hybrid. Great. So what we saw there again, you've got minimum stays where you can kind of, maybe you block your calendar in the far future, you try to get 30 days, exactly like what Oksana was showing on iGMS. And then as stay days approach, you start to lower that minimum stay. And what I'm showing with bringing that demand in is you might want to have just more kind of flat pricing rules for a month, right? If you're really priced on a monthly basis, that highly variable pricing might not be appropriate, but you might want to bring in some demand, right, to allow you to capture a little bit more revenue. So it's almost like you're listening to the market, you're setting pricing, but then you're listening to the market just a little bit. And that is a way to leverage kind of a rule base plus a little bit of data for starting to optimize your pricing around what the market is telling us. Okay, so hybrid pricing, we'd have to explore it a lot more to get to the full bottom of it, but that's a little place to start. Now we're going to look at calendar views, right? So on Wheelhouse, you can have actually thousands of listings, but you can have a portfolio page where you can see all your pricing at once. We're going to see that kind of multi-calendar view. So you can actually you can evaluate your daily, weekly, and monthly strategies at the same time. Okay, so this will be a shorter video, I promise. So we just saw how we could build a pricing strategy around hybrid. Now let's go back to our calendar. And this view is our portfolio calendar view. You're going to see all of your properties set up here. So in this case, what I'm looking at 44 properties. And I could have adjusted the hybrid pricing across all 44 properties at once. But what I'm actually going to do here is there's there are 2 new pieces of functionality here. So recently Wheelhouse added the ability to tag. And what I'm going to do is properties that I'm building kind of a 30-day strategy for, I'm going to tag. And I'm going to say 30-day strategy and 30-day strategy. Now I can come to Wheelhouse's filter. And I can filter down to just properties that have my 30-day strategy. Let me just refresh. Probably, it looks like it didn't catch that last listing. Filter by tag, 30-day strategy. Maybe it just will catch 2. We'll see here. Probably need to click it. But so these are my 30-day strategy listings. And this functionality is brand new. So in this case, what I want to look at is you could look at weekly or you could look at monthly pricing. And in this case, I actually adjusted different properties for my 30-day strategy. But what you would see here, when the month is empty, it means that you have bookings during that month. It's not available for a month's stay. But you're now able to see your monthly pricing strategy out into the future. You can also look at it on a weekly basis. Another cool thing on Wheelhouse is you can now do pricing roll-ups. So you can look at daily and you can say, hey, I want to roll up my prices for the next 30 days, and you'll see the aggregated price for all your next 30 days. So pretty interesting way to both tag your 30-day strategy properties and look at your pricing strategy in a variety of fashions. And that's new from Wheelhouse. The tagging launched about 6-7 weeks ago. It's pretty advanced now. You can see we can come in here and just add multiple tags if we want. This launched this week is in admin mode only. It'll be live to customers next week, but it's a really pretty novel way to see your portfolio on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. Again, around the goal with the goal of enabling you to mix short and mid-length pricing strategies. By the way, if you wanted to aim for longer strategies, you can do a roll-up of, call it a quarterly pricing strategy as well. So super advanced, pretty fun, and should be helpful. Cheers. Great. So as mentioned, that's in admin mode now. That will probably be live tomorrow, if not next week. But some new functionality, really reflective of the fact that Wheelhouse has been researching mid-length for roughly a year. We're now redesigning the interface to start to enable you to take advantage of these differentiated pricing strategies. Okay. Now we're going to see one more thing, and then we've got time for questions. We'll be free. This section is kind of booking and pacing, but also it really is what we're really going to see is a way to set up an A/B test like that. And the A/B test is going to allow you to think about, let's say, again, you had 2 properties or 10 properties, and you wanted to see what's the revenue, kind of how does the performance of my properties differ when I employ different strategies. Okay. So this, I think I misled you on the last one. That last video was about the same length. I think this one is faster. So we're going to watch one more video and then we'll be done. So lastly, let's go look at a fun way to see booking performance. And we've got these tags. We added the 30-day strategy, and you'll see they actually flow through to a booking tab on Wheelhouse. So I'm going to click into the booking tab, and we're again going to see functionality that launched literally this week. The team at Wheelhouse moves fast. So historically, you've been able to filter. So you could tag a filter. So you could just see, let's see, 30-day strategy. And what you're going to see here on this line is you're going to see what is often called pickup. So you'll see where people are booking your properties. And if we just eliminate the strategy, you'll see it more on a real portfolio. You'll see something that looks like this. I'm going to turn off a budget line, which you can add as well. And you also see your pacing line, right? So you'll see how you're doing month over month, moving towards the end of a month. All this data is exportable as a photo or image, or as data or an image. Now, this new functionality, also flagged as admin only until next week, launched on Monday. And here you can come in and maybe you want to look at all of your properties. So the easy way to do this, a couple ways to do it, will probably make it easier in the near future, but I'm just going to select all my listings or all markets here. And then in group B, I'm just going to look for my 30-day strategy properties. And at a daily level, it's a little tough to see what's going on. At a monthly level, you'll see that we're now, we'll make the colors different for you, but you're able to see and compare strategies. So all of a sudden, should this be a real example? Maybe half of your portfolio was doing 30-day strategy and half was not. You'd be able to see both your pickup on those different strategies and your pacing on different strategies. Great. So those really are the 3 things we want to share today. I think there's a deeper dive into the data itself that is, I'm happy to discuss now kind of what we're seeing, what trends we're seeing, et cetera. But already today, if you wanted to go execute a great mid-length strategy, long-term strategy, I actually think the combination of iGMS and that double listing, the notion of creating 2 listings, as well as some of the pricing controls have. So you can build your hybrid pricing strategy. You can really easily see that strategy on your calendar. And now you can run an A/B test to figure out if it's right for you, is quite an interesting place to be for people who are interested in this mid-length strategy. So with that, I know we've got some time for questions. Oksana, any questions for me?
Yeah, well, what did you say, Andrew, with regards to, we have like direct booking channel, for example, an Airbnb channel. Will this pricing also like take different approach for different channels, or it's going to be applied to both?
Great. So, well, in our partnership with iGMS, iGMS is actually able to pull in all of our Wheelhouse pricing.
Mhm.
And then are people able to distribute different strategies to different channels? So like you might pull in $200 from us and discount on your direct site as an example. Is that possible?
For now, we don't really have discounts on the direct booking, but we're working on that. But yeah, that's possible. That will be possible.
Yeah. So so iGMS and Wheelhouse in partnership, iGMS will distribute the rates. You'll manage all your revenue and observe all the data in Wheelhouse, and then you'll be able to execute a cross-channel strategy with iGMS.
Yeah, so you can play around with Airbnb strategy. You can play around with your direct booking strategy. So basically, play around with different strategies and see which pricing works better.
Yes.
In this case, yep, that's cool. That's cool. Maybe then we can move on to the questions that we have.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's see. From what you can see, there is a first one that we have can walk. What is the sweet spot for creating a rental agreement with a short-term or mid-term guest? So I'm not really sure what you mean by the sweet spot, but from what I can understand, you will have to create two different agreements anyway. There is no way you can create one agreement for both. You will have to take into account your regulations that you have in place for your I don't know, there's probably some regulations in your area that restrict you from like renting an apartment for this amount of time or something like this. So you will definitely need to think about that in advance. For the short term, if you're just renting that on Airbnb, that's probably, you can go without any rental agreement. Airbnb is covering that for you. But if you're renting on short term directly, yeah, you will definitely need an agreement that you can put together, the same one as you have, for example. There are quite a few templates, I have to admit, for short-term rental agreements that you can look up. For the mid-term, you will definitely need to check with your local regulations and see how it's working out for you. There is no like sweet spot, unfortunately. There is no one size fits all, I think. So that would be the answer. Okay, done with this one. What do we have?
There was a question that was asked. Madeline asked about, do we have any OTA suggestions that specialize in long-term or mid-term bookings? And what I typed out there and moved over to the answered column was, there are teams like Altavita, which is good if you have an apartment that caters to corporate folks. They're great. Nestpick is another channel that they also own. What's their other team? Sublet.com. Both of those are part of the Nestpick family, and they help people with 30-day plus stays. Zumper is a site that used to just offer kind of longer term rentals, and now they're offering this mid-length product and even short term as well. Apartments.com, there are actually lots. So if you look at kind of the larger trends that are happening right now, is all of these channels, even Zillow is going to be offering this soon, right? So you're kind of seeing a convergence of where all these channels are going to sell all the inventory, is a basic way to think about it. Airbnb as well. You've got to be on Airbnb if you're doing mid-length. About 20+% of all bookings are now mid-length there. So those are the places you definitely would want to be, among others. Oksana, what else would you add?
I think that you listed them all.
Okay, nice.
I mean, at least those that I've heard. So, yep. Okay, what else do we have? Louis is asking, do you consider other service providers before setting or deciding with Stripe? In other words, Stripe. Well, that's a very good question. To be honest, we were looking at Stripe from the very beginning because, well, first of all, they are the well-known company, and we trust them and as many other users of theirs. And we have to admit that we're looking at this from the point of scaling further. So for now, we're working on an option to have multiple Stripes accounts. So we are working more towards like trust accounting and having all of those extra top layers of how we can process payments. So this is why we were thinking of Stripe in the first place, but we are also considering PayPal adding in the future, and we're also even thinking of processing credit cards ourselves. So that was also a crazy thought. So Stripe was the obvious option from the very beginning because of the future scaling, but of course it doesn't really mean that only this one will work. Okay.
So the next one is Rodrigo. When you create two listings in Airbnb, one for short and one for long, how do you sync both calendars? Also, is it possible to manage both using Wheelhouse?
Yeah, that's a good question. With regards to syncing calendars, I can probably answer from the iGMS side. We suggest that there is an option in iGMS where you can use them together as on your calendar, basically, but we do not recommend mixing them or grouping them or doing anything like this. I understand that it's potential a double booking situation in this case, but what we usually recommend is canceling those short-term reservations that you have if they suddenly hit somewhere, for example, in the middle of your long-term reservation, and you can move this person to another unit if you have another unit available, or for example, give them a discount for a different date that you have available. So you can basically play around with those, but we do not recommend mixing them together because that would block all the possibilities for you. If you mix them together, if you basically group them together, you will not have a chance to have both long-term and short-term reservations, unfortunately. So Andrew, what about Wheelhouse?
Interesting. Well, this is really cool, right? Because so when you think about it, when you're selling on Airbnb and other places, you're really selling your 24 photos is the way I like to think about it. And sometimes in the wintertime, for example, your first photo should be a fireplace and a warm cup of tea or in a hot tub. And in the summer, that same place, you'd show a pool, porch, pool, patio, barbecue. And where that leads me to believe is that, the idea of having multiple listings for a property because you sell to different customers is really very interesting, but it does potentially introduce the notion of that double booking thing.
Yep.
So I think where I'm really excited to see property management softwares go in the future is to have the notion of you have one property, but you might have 4 different listings of that property that all kind of actually combine bookings, right? So we'll have to look at, I'll look at our integration with iGMS, but basically our system, iGMS creates listings on our system. They'll send us bookings and information. We look at all those bookings and any kind of bookings on your comp set in your market, and we'll adjust prices, and iGMS then pulls those prices and distributes them, right? So it would be easy to set up on Wheelhouse. iGMS would create the listings for you. You could manage both of them, the pricing strategy in Wheelhouse. And that's easy. And what I would probably recommend in that case is by default, our system would charge you for 2 listings. So you'd probably want to contact our customer support and say, hey, here's what I'm trying out. We have, again, that very fast customer support. I'm sure we could help you. But yeah, good question. I would say the industry is still early in this concept of kind of the multiple listings for the same property. But I think it's going to be a big development area in the coming years, luckily. Very important.
I have to mention that we're working nicely when there's multiple listings coming from different platforms, but when it's on the same platform, yeah, that's a tricky one. And this is something that we definitely need to work on.
Yep. Cool. Okay. And we have one last question from Matthew. Will the pricing subscription fees to integrated in Wheelhouse for midterm strategy only be lower than the STR listing fee, since these units generate less revenue? It's understandable for hybrid strategy to keep the same fee, but is there a special discount for listings only using the live monthly strategy because of city rules? Great. Okay. So I will, Matthew, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here. I think your first question is around like, hey, if you're earning less, can you pay Wheelhouse less on a monthly basis? So the answer is yes. The way that our pricing system works is we actually allow you to choose how you pay us, which sounds absurd at first, but let me tell you a little bit more about it. So you can either pay us a percentage of revenue, which will start at 1%, but we drop as your portfolio scales, or you can pay us $19.99 a month for one listing, or again, that drops as you scale your portfolio, right? So if you had 10 listings, you're probably down at more like $13.99, $14.99. So in a sense, you get to choose whichever system works best for you, and you can change your listing at any time. And what we kind of tell our customers is like, look, our job is to make you more money, and your job is to optimize your business and keep as much money as you possibly can, right? So we literally say, game us. if you want to move your portfolio around, if you want to split your portfolio in any way, maybe you have 10 properties, some of which you want to have on a flat fee, some you want on a percent, whatever's better for you is better for us long-term, right? We are deeply rooted in being and future-proofing your revenue and profits. That is our mission. So therefore we allow you to pay us whatever works best for your business. And if you're international, especially right now, the dollar is very strong. You might want to switch over to a percentage fee, right? So we just allow people the freedom to run their business how they want. And hopefully that answers your question. And the second part of the question, I don't 100% understand. Is understandable for hybrid strategy to keep the same fee, discount for listings using that in the month? Matthew, that second question might be more complicated. So maybe if you want to lean in more, maybe you can send our team a note or message our customer support and they could help you answer that question. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah,
okay.
I can see replies from Matthew. Yeah, he's
All
quite
right,
satisfied with the answer. Okay.
Good. Maybe too much. Maybe too much.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. Well, I think we're done.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's all the questions that we have, and we answered all of them. Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Excellent. Cool. Well, thank you so much, all, and thank you, Oksana, for hosting and putting together a great presentation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much, Andrew, actually, for joining me with this adventure. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We will send the recording of this webinar to your emails, so watch out for those.
Excellent. All right, all. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.